For over 500 years, the name Niccolò Machiavelli has been synonymous with evil. To call someone Machiavellian is to call them manipulative, deceitful, ruthless, and cold-blooded. His most famous book, The Prince, has been banned by the Pope, condemned by philosophers, and used as a manual for tyrants, dictators, and corrupt politicians throughout history. But what if everything we think we know about Machiavelli is wrong? What if he wasn't a teacher of evil, but simply the first person in history brave enough to describe the world exactly as it is, rather than how we wish it to be? To understand this masterpiece, we must travel back to Florence, Italy, in the year 1513. Machiavelli was not a prince. He was a mid-level diplomat and civil servant who had dedicated his life to the Florentine Republic. But when the powerful Medici family violently seized control of the city, Machiavelli was fired, accused of treason, thrown into a dungeon, and brutally tortured. He was eventually released, stripped of his status, and forced into exile on a small farm outside the city. Desperate to prove his worth to the new rulers and win back his job, he sat down at his desk and wrote a short, brutal, and unflinching treatise on power. He called it The Prince. He was not writing a moral philosophy book. He was writing a survival guide. He was looking at the bloody, chaotic, and unforgiving reality of Renaissance Italy and asking a single, terrifying question: how does a leader actually acquire, maintain, and expand power in a world full of enemies? Today, we are going to dive deep into this controversial masterpiece. We will strip away the moral outrage that has clouded its message for centuries, uncover the brutal mechanics of human nature and leadership, and learn the exact psychological frameworks Machiavelli used to explain the anatomy of power. The very first lesson of The Prince, the foundation upon which all of Machiavelli's philosophy is built, is the rejection of idealism in favor of realism. Before Machiavelli, political philosophers like Plato and Aristotle wrote about the ideal state. They wrote about how rulers ought to behave, how they should be virtuous, and how a perfect society would function. Machiavelli looked at these philosophers and essentially said they were living in a fantasy world. He argued that a leader who tries to be perfectly good in a world where most men are not good will inevitably be destroyed. Machiavelli introduces the concept of the effectual truth of things. He tells the prince that he must learn how not to be good. This does not mean the prince should be evil for the sake of being evil. It means the prince must be willing to do bad things when the survival of the state requires it. If you are a leader, a CEO, or a head of a family, and you insist on playing by the rules of a utopian society while your competitors are playing by the rules of the jungle, you will lose. Machiavelli demands that you look at human nature with cold, objective clarity. He writes that men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers. They shun danger and are greedy for profit. If you build your leadership strategy on the assumption that people will be loyal, honest, and fair, you are building a castle on sand. You must build your strategy on the reality of human selfishness, fear, and ambition. Once you accept this brutal reality, you must understand the two essential tools required to navigate it. Machiavelli uses a brilliant metaphor drawn from ancient mythology, the lion and the fox. He writes that a prince must be a fox to recognize the traps, and a lion to frighten the wolves. The lion represents raw power, force, and military strength. The lion can intimidate enemies, crush rebellions, and enforce the law. But a lion is not clever. A lion can easily walk into a snare set by a hunter. The fox represents cunning, diplomacy, deception, and strategic intelligence. The fox can spot the trap, negotiate the escape, and outsmart the enemy. But a fox cannot fight off a pack of wolves. Most leaders fail because they rely too heavily on one and neglect the other. The brute force leader relies only on the lion. he alienates his allies, creates unnecessary enemies, and eventually gets outmaneuvered by a smarter opponent. The purely diplomatic leader relies only on the fox. He negotiates and schemes, but when the time comes to use force, he is weak and easily conquered. The ultimate prince seamlessly blends both. He uses the cunning of the fox to avoid unnecessary conflicts, to build alliances, and to deceive his enemies. But when diplomacy fails, when the survival of his power is on the line, he unleashes the lion without hesitation. In the modern world, this translates to the leader who is highly emotionally intelligent and strategically clever, but who also possesses the absolute willingness to make the hard, ruthless decisions when the situation demands it. This brings us to the most famous, and most misunderstood, question in the entire book: is it better to be loved or feared? Machiavelli's answer is definitive. He says that ideally, a prince should be both loved and feared. But because it is exceedingly difficult to combine the two, if you must choose, it is much safer to be feared than loved. Why? Because love is held together by a chain of obligation. And because men are selfish, as Machiavelli reminds us, they will break that chain of obligation the moment it serves their self-interest. Love is fickle. It changes with the wind. But fear, Machiavelli argues, is held together by the dread of punishment, which never fails. People will betray a leader they love if it benefits them, but they will think twice before betraying a leader they fear, because the cost of betrayal is too high. However, Machiavelli immediately adds a crucial, vital caveat: the prince must make himself feared in such a way that, if he does not win love, he avoids hatred. Fear and hatred are not the same thing, and crossing the line from one to the other is the fatal mistake of a tyrant. How does a leader avoid being hated? Machiavelli gives a very specific rule: keep your hands off your subjects' property and their women. Men will quickly forget the death of their father, he writes, but they will never forget the loss of their inheritance. If you take a man's life, you must have a legitimate, undeniable reason, and you must do it swiftly. But if you confiscate a man's property, you create a permanent, burning resentment that will fuel a rebellion. In the modern corporate or social world, this means you can be a strict, demanding, and even intimidating boss, but you must never be petty, you must never steal credit for other people's work, and you must never violate their fundamental dignity. You can command respect through fear of your standards, but if you become cruel and unjust, you will be hated, and your downfall will be inevitable. To understand how to wield power without crossing into hatred, we must look at Machiavelli's concept of cruelty well-used versus cruelty ill-used. Machiavelli was fascinated by Cesare Borgia, a ruthless Renaissance duke who conquered the Romagna region. When Borgia took over, the region was lawless, filled with corrupt officials and violent bandits. To restore order, Borgia appointed a ruthless man named Ramiro de Orco and gave him absolute power to clean up the region. Ramiro did his job brutally and effectively. The region became peaceful and orderly. But Borgia knew that Ramiro's brutal methods were making him deeply hated, and that hatred would eventually reflect back on Borgia himself. So, Borgia decided to use a shocking, calculated act of cruelty to reset the board. One morning, the citizens of the region woke up to find Ramiro de Orco dead in the town square, cut in 2 pieces, with a block of wood and a bloody knife beside him. The people were simultaneously terrified and satisfied. Borgia had achieved his goal of order, but he had also shifted the blame for the brutality onto Ramiro, and by executing him, he appeared as a champion of justice. Machiavelli uses this to teach a profound lesson about the timing of power. Injuries, he says, should be done all at once, so that being tasted less, they offend less. Benefits, on the other hand, should be given little by little, so that they may be tasted better. When you must make a painful decision, firing a large group of employees, ending a relationship, restructuring a company, do it all at once. Do not drag it out. Rip the band-aid off. The initial shock will be severe, but people will adapt. But when you give rewards, promotions, or favors, do it gradually. If you give someone everything they want on day one, they will expect it forever, and they will resent you when you stop. If you give it to them slowly, you keep them motivated, loyal, and constantly looking to you for the next reward. This calculated manipulation of perception leads to one of the most cynical, yet highly practical, lessons in the book, The Mask of Virtue. Machiavelli observes that the masses are always impressed by appearances and by the outcome of events. He writes that everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. Therefore, a prince does not need to actually possess all the traditional virtues: mercy, faith, integrity, humanity, and religion. In fact, possessing them all the time will ruin you. But the prince must appear to possess them. You must be a great simulator and dissimulator. You must look like the most moral, honest, and compassionate person in the room. You must speak the language of virtue. But behind closed doors, when the survival of your mission requires it, you must be willing to act contrary to those virtues. Think of the modern politician or the charismatic CEO. They project an image of absolute integrity, family values, and selflessness. They kiss babies and give inspiring speeches. But behind the scenes, they are making ruthless deals, crushing competitors, and laying off thousands of workers to protect the bottom line. Machiavelli is not necessarily telling you to be a hypocrite, he is telling you to understand the power of optics. In the public sphere, perception is reality. If you lose the respect of the crowd because you appear weak or corrupt, your actual power evaporates. You must fiercely protect your reputation and your public image, even if your private actions are entirely pragmatic. But even with all these tactics, the lion and the fox, the balance of fear and love, the careful timing of cruelty, the mask of virtue, there is one force that can destroy the best laid plans of any prince. Machiavelli calls this force fortuna, which translates to fortune, luck, or fate. Machiavelli compares fortuna to a violent, raging river. When the river is calm, men can build dikes and dams to control it. But when the storm comes and the river floods, it destroys everything in its path. No one can stop the flood. However, Machiavelli argues that fortuna only controls about half of our actions. The other half is left to our own free will. This is where he introduces the concept of virtue. This is not the English word virtue meaning moral goodness. Virtue means prowess, skill, adaptability, and masculine energy. It is the ability to impose your will upon the world. Machiavelli argues that a leader with high virtue builds the dikes and dams during the calm times. He prepares for the crisis before it happens. He builds up his military, he secures his finances, he strengthens his alliances. So when the flood of bad luck comes, he is ready. Furthermore, Machiavelli makes a bold, almost arrogant claim about fortuna. He says that fortune is a woman, and if you want to master her, you must beat and strike her. He means that fortune favors the bold. She responds to young, aggressive, and impulsive men who attack life with fierce energy, rather than those who sit back and wait for things to happen. If you are passive, if you let circumstances dictate your life, you are a slave to fortune. But if you act with boldness, speed, and relentless virtue, you can bend fortune to your will. You cannot control the storm, but you can build a ship that can survive it, and you can learn to sail in the wind. As we conclude this deep exploration of the prince, it is vital to understand the true legacy of Niccolò Machiavelli. For centuries, moralists have hated him because he separated politics from ethics. He looked at the game of power and refused to pretend it was a moral game. He showed us that the people who hold power are not necessarily the most virtuous, the kindest, or the most honest. They are the most adaptable, the most strategic, and the most willing to do what is necessary. Reading The Prince is not an endorsement of tyranny. It is a vaccination against it. By understanding how power actually works, by understanding the dark triad of human nature, you protect yourself from those who would use these tactics against you. It forces you to open your eyes to the reality of the world. It demands that you stop being naive, stop expecting the world to be fair, and start taking radical responsibility for your own survival and success. Machiavelli holds up a mirror to humanity, and the reflection is often ugly. But it is only by looking at the ugly truth that we can ever hope to transcend it. You do not have to become a monster to survive in a world of monsters, but you must understand how they think, how they operate, and how they wield power. Thank you for joining this journey into the darkest, most pragmatic corners of political philosophy. If this unflinching look at the mechanics of power resonates with you, if it gives you a clearer lens to view leadership, business, and human nature, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, the world is not what it should be, it is what it is. Go forth, study the effectual truth, master your fortune, and navigate the world with the eyes wide open. If you enjoyed this book, please let me know in the comments. I'd also love to hear what book you'd like me to summarize next or what type of books you're interested in. Your suggestions help shape this channel, and I'll do my best to bring you the content you want. Thank you for subscribing to Raw Books. Your support means a lot.